Good morning to all attending the RTA's meeting of the Board of Directors. I want to review the guidelines for our meeting this morning. And for the members who are in person, thank you for being here. As always, please turn your microphones on when you wish to speak, obviously, and off when you're done so we can limit the background noise as this meeting is being recorded. I will call on you one at a time if you're present and wish to speak. For those calling in remotely, thank you and good morning wherever you are. Keep your audio on mute as much as possible to also minimize the background noise. When you have a question or comment, you're very good at this after a couple of years of raising your virtual hand. And the board secretary will call on the members who have raised their hands one at a time. When she calls on you, please try to remember to lower your hand, which I never do when I'm on one of those, but lower your hand. With that said, I will now call to order the meeting of the Board of Directors of the Regional Transportation Authority. Will everyone in attendance please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Sure. Good morning. Director Indulcio?
Here.
Director Carey?
Here.
Director Colson?
Here.
Director Fuentes?
Here.
Director Gathing?
Here.
Director Gorman?
Here.
Director Groven?
Here.
Director Holt? Director Fatal? Director Lewis? Director Melvin? No, he is on the Zoom. Director Pang?
Here.
Director Ross?
Here.
Director Sager? He is also on the Zoom. And then Chairman Dillard.
Great, thank you. So you have a good roll call there, you know that
Yes,
two of them are on
good.
the Zoom.
Yep.
Thank you, Joey, very much. Item 3 is the approval of the minutes from the board meeting and executive session held on December 14th of 2023. And Madam Secretary, you need to read a statement regarding an executive session we had on that day.
Yes. As required under the Illinois Open Meeting Act 5 Illinois CS 120/2.06D, the board of directors met and determined that the need for confidentiality still exists as to all the remaining closed executive session meeting minutes. Based on its review, the board reached consensus that there were no meeting minutes to release at this time. The board also approved the destruction of the verbatim recordings from the executive sessions meetings held between August 2021 and April 2022.
Thank you. Any comments or corrections to the minutes from our December meeting? If not, how about a motion by Director Indulcio to approve, seconded by Director Pang. And with that, Madam Secretary, please take the roll.
Director Indulcio?
Aye.
Director Carey?
Aye.
Director Colson?
Aye.
Director Fuentes?
Aye.
Director Gathing?
Aye.
Director Gorman?
Aye.
Director Groven?
Aye.
Director Holt? Director Cattell? Director Lewis? Director Melvin? Director Pang?
Yes.
Director Ross?
Yes.
And Director Sager?
Yes.
So that is-
I'm a yes too, Joey.
That's 11, yeah. Sorry, Chairman Dillard.
It's all right.
We have 11 yeses.
So those minutes are approved. Thank you. Item 4 is the public comments segment of the meeting. Any comments received will now be read into the record by the board secretary. Madam Secretary, did we have any written comments come in?
We have no written comments.
Okay. And I believe we may have a couple of people who want to speak this morning, and anyone else that's here other than Austin Bush or Karsten Lohan, please let me know. Austin or Karsten, are you here? Come on up and welcome. Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm here during the working day to represent a broader group of advocates under the Chicago Safe Streets Union concerning a pivotal intersection in the city of Chicago and how the RTA can tangibly improve the bus rider experience throughout the city with targeting engagement in the upcoming weeks. I hope you are aware of the upcoming project to replace the Chicago Avenue Bridge over the north branch of the Chicago River, as well as the intersection of Chicago Avenue and Halsted Street. You might be forgiven if you are not aware of the project, though, as public engagement throughout the design process has been limited to a single meeting on January 23rd, and materials were not posted online following the event. This design is being overseen by CDOT under the supervision of Salomon Kudera of the Division of Engineering. Funding is also partially sourced from IDOT as part of a $65 million project. It is clear from the public meeting that buses are an afterthought in this design. Buses are given queue jumps only in the westbound Chicago Avenue direction and in the northbound Halsted Street section, both of which are mixed with a general traffic turn lane. The map of construction detours also does not even include bus detours. The project does, however, include an entirely new lane of westbound traffic on Chicago Avenue reserved for mixed-use traffic. The easternmost point of this project conjoins with the existing bus lanes on Chicago Avenue up to Larrabee Street, making the omission of bus lanes in favor of a mixed lane expansion quite galling. Furthermore, the project lies entirely within the existing planned pilot zone for camera enforcement of bus lane blockages, and the existing route section with bus lanes east of the project will soon see the improved enforcement through that policy. The current proposed design may actually prove to be against the City of Chicago's recent update to Municipal Code 10-14-010B, which requires accommodations aligning with recognized best practices, complete streets elements for all users be included in all phases when constructing transportation facilities. This strongly implies a consensus among the city government to install bus lane priority along such corridors as this, and I ask that the RTA today assist CDOT in achieving compliance with their own municipal code. Meanwhile, the RTA does have the power to enforce this compliance, as stated in the RTA Act Section 2.06. The authority may, for the benefit of a service board by ordinance, provide for special lanes for exclusive or special use by public transit vehicles with regard to any roads, streets, etc., in the metropolitan region, notwithstanding any governmental statute, ordinance, or regulation to the contrary. Utilizing this power would align with the planning priorities of every involved agency. It is clear from the ridership numbers that the number 66 and number 8 CTA buses are extremely important through this intersection, with both buses being in the top 10 highest ridership routes at 15,000 and 10,000 daily average riders respectively. Additionally, both appear in the list of proposed routes for the bus priority treatments as part of the Better Streets for Buses plan, which is a joint plan under CDOT and CTA. Furthermore, CDOT has additionally committed to its 2021 strategic plan for transportation, in which they will partner with CTA in reducing commute times by improving the transit experience for all Chicagoans, including bus lane projects and transit signal priority intersections. IDOT, which co-funded the initial design phase, set an objective in their 2019 long-range transportation plan to support the effective movement of passengers through bus rapid transit and bus-only lanes. And lastly, as on today's agenda, I believe item number 6B, the RTA's own Transit is the Answer plan notes such priorities in Advocacy Area 7, pages 120 through 121, listing partnering with roadway agencies to build transit-friendly streets and BRT as a long-term priority. And then on page 124, specifically stating that the RTA will advocate for agencies to champion bus projects, improve their arterial roadway design, and secure more dedicated space on regional roads in order to bring the region more in line with peer regions in transitway mileage. Bridges don't get built very often in Chicago, as evidenced by this bridge being 100 years old before they were replacing it. We can't wait for longer-term priorities to take advantage of the current construction in this project, a $65 million endeavor that leaves bus riders further stuck in traffic. With construction set to begin in the third quarter of 2024, it's imperative that the RTA inserts itself as an advocate for transit riders in the current final engineering phase of the project and utilizes its state-granted powers to improve the experience of over 4 million annual bus riders. To be frank, the RTA is at a crossroads regarding state funding. The CMAT Plan of Action for Regional Transit promotes options for either an integrated or empowered RTA to be created as part of any legislation addressing the transit fiscal cliff. When the RTA already has state-granted powers and is not using them, it sends a bad signal to the legislators in Springfield. This project is a perfect opportunity to utilize these powers for a project with significant backing from advocates and local politicians in order to improve the transit experience to some of the region's highest ridership corridors. I implore you to urgently exercise the powers granted to the RTA under state legislation to improve the proposed design to benefit transit riders at Chicago and Halsted. Thank you.
Thank you for the excellent testimony. Any questions or comments? We'll clearly talk to CDOT. I assume you've been to the CTA board.
I have not because I had class at the same time.
That's all right. Clearly try to get to the CTA board, and I would talk to the Chicago Tribune and Chicago Sun-Times too, and maybe even Cranes. Leanne, do you have a comment? But no, thank you. We will clearly double back with and appreciate your comments. Yes, Director Carey.
There was a lot of information in there in what you provided, and I appreciate your comments, Chair. I would appreciate something coming back to us as to, was CTA involved in the planning? What, if anything, can we do under some of the authority he mentions in the RTA Act?
We can
if
report
we
back.
could find out a little bit more about this.
Anything else? Thank you. It was excellent.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Yep, come on up. And identify yourself for the record. So the board secretary, if you would. Thank you. And good morning.
Good morning, Karsten Lohan. Good morning. I am here today to talk about buses and their future on the roadways of Chicagoland. My commentary, while general in nature, relates to Agenda Item 6B and the RTA's Transit is the Answer plan. Like Austin, I too am here to advocate for better bus infrastructure in the vicinity of the Chicago and Halsted intersection. As recently presented by the Chicago Department of Transportation, I find the planned roadway improvements substantially lacking with regard to transit rider benefits. My main area of concern is the omission of dedicated bus lanes in CDOT's current plan at an intersection that soon will see a new casino and up to 7,700 units as approved by the city. I note that that's almost double the old Cabrini Green unit count. At present, east and westbound bus lanes exist along Chicago Avenue from Michigan Avenue to approximately the river. These lanes begin again some 1,100 feet west of Chicago and Halsted, beginning at Sangamon and running to the Kennedy Expressway. Further west on Chicago Avenue, the bus lane picks up between Ashland and Western Avenues. Some of these lanes are rush hour only and some are 24 hours a day, but they all seek to achieve the same goal, to speed up our buses. To me, the layman, the logical solution would be to stitch these three separate segments of bus lanes together, creating a 3.2-mile dedicated lane for the Chicago Avenue bus. But I am not here today as a layman. I speak before you today as a transit advocate. I advocate for those who ride the buses in our great city, in our great region, and can't take time off work to address this board. Today, I speak for them when I ask you to meaningfully embrace bus rapid transit in Chicago and use your powers under the RTA Act to create these lanes. Like Austin said, as I understand it, under Section 2.06A of the Act, the RTA has the authority to, quote, provide for special lanes for exclusive or special uses by public transportation vehicles, end quote. And that the RTA can implement these lanes without request from a service provider, but for their benefit. Section 5.02 also provides the authority for the RTA to implement these roadway changes without need for a drawn-out process involving City Hall. I don't exactly know if the RTA has ever used these powers as given to them by Springfield, but I do know that we need to explore all options before us to address bus speeds in Chicago and the region. At present, Chicago has under 15 miles of bus lanes, clearly lagging behind national peers in terms of dedicated roadway space for buses. New York City has approximately 150 miles of bus lanes with commitments to add more. Los Angeles Metro Transit reports just over 50 miles of dedicated bus lanes at year-end 2023, with a commitment to add 100 more miles before the 2028 Olympics. DC has nearly 13 miles of dedicated bus lanes with full photo enforcement and a commitment to add 24 more miles by the end of 2025. Even Indianapolis, with a population of under 900,000, likely exceeds Chicago's bus lane network, with 13 miles of at-grade, three-door boarding BRT-style service in their Indigo Red Line. Even Pace, accounting for the on-the-shoulder usage, exceeds Chicago's current mileage count. It is certainly clear that Chicago is far, far behind in implementing bus lanes. With the RTA's help and a flex of their political muscle, I think Chicago could be a worst to first success story. I know behind the scenes, the board and the staff are already well at work at speeding up the buses in the region, and for that, I applaud you. The Pace Pulse is an excellent example of your efforts to better the rider experience in our region's buses. However, the CTA is falling behind and our buses are getting slower and slower, stuck in traffic. As the Chicago Avenue bus has the second highest ridership in the city with a 2022 year-end ridership of nearly 4 million and a pre-pandemic ridership in 2019 of 6.6 million. The 66 is the ideal route to target BRT or at least BRT-like dedicated lane service. So today I ask you, join me and let's work together to paint the town red, or at least the bus lanes.
Thank you. This is excellent.
Director Sagar has a comment.
Yes, Dr. Sagar, good morning.
Yes, I hope that everyone can hear me all right.
Yes, we can. Doctor.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate the comments of our two public speakers. I think that they are well placed, and frankly, I think they're quite articulate, and I am grateful for their time this morning. I too agree with them that there is an importance here, a significance, almost an urgency, if you will, for us to move forward and to truly investigate this and see what we might be able to do as an RTA board to affect positive change, not just for today, but well into the future relative to bus lanes. And so I would appreciate very much, if it's possible, for us to have their comments sent to us so that we can review those and then again speak together in a discussion format in future meetings about these requests. So that would be my request, and I would appreciate the opportunity to further discuss this. And Chair, I appreciate your efforts to kind of set the stage, as it were, with other discussions outside. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Doctor. Both Austin and Carson gave me the thumbs up, so if they'll get us their comments if they would. And obviously we'll have our staff work and talk to the city. I'll talk to the CTA. And Austin and Carson, that's a mayor kind of speaking to you. May not be the mayor of Chicago, but a mayor. So thank you, gentlemen, very much. Any other public comment speakers today? Seeing none, thank you, gentlemen, again. Item 5 is the Executive Director's Report. Leanne.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So about a year ago, actually, almost to the day, we met in this room and adopted Transit is the Answer, our strategic plan that was just referenced. So I'm glad to see that people are out there reading it and paying attention and following what we're doing. It was a plan that took, about 18 months for us to develop in advance of that approval a year ago. And today we're going to hear a little bit from staff about some of the things that we have accomplished to date. I mean, I know we've been reporting to you sort of fairly regularly, but we thought it was a good time to give you kind of a year in review snapshot of some of the progress that has been made and then the work that we've got ahead of us, and specifically the work around our action and advocacy agenda. I will preview just a bit of what you'll hear a little bit later on by mentioning 2 events that I personally attended this month. On February 1st, I joined Cook County President Toni Preckwinkle and several of her commissioners, as well as Metra's Chair Romaine Brown and Jim Dewinski, Metra's CEO, as well as members of the press at a press conference at Union Station launching the Access Pilot Program, which offers reduced fares on Metra for SNAP recipients. As you'll hear in our update later, this expansion of reduced fares to those experiencing low incomes was a priority implementation activity for us as part of our plan. And we're grateful to have engaged so many stakeholders across our coalition in helping us execute that work. Then just last week on February 7, I joined the chairman and leadership from the 3 service boards in Springfield, where we hosted an open house for legislators to talk about the pending fiscal cliff, our current work, and what our issues and challenges are. And after that, so I think, well, it was a really good opportunity, I think, for all of us to engage collectively with members of the Illinois General Assembly, talk to them about their knowledge, their issues, their concerns as well. And then after that, we had the opportunity to collectively, as a group, meet with Senate President Don Harmon, Speaker of the House Chris Welsh, the Senate Transportation Chair Vili Vallam, and Republican leadership, as well as several other legislative leaders and stakeholders across the region during that 2-day visit. So I think it was there was the legislature's first real week of work in Springfield, and I know we'll be back down, but I think it was a good start for sort of this legislative session as a good kickoff. Both of those events really marked, I think, a significant milestone in the progress that we have made on implementing aspects of our strategic plan, and even more specifically, some of our legislative agenda. So next slide, please. For a little bit more in-depth legislative update, I'm going to sort of start on the local side and then move to the federal end of things. The General Assembly began, as I mentioned, their legislative session on Jan 16. The deadline for introducing legislation was last Friday, February 9th. Several pieces of legislation have been filed that will impact transit, including proposals to expand free and reduced fares to students, additional seniors, and further with people with disabilities. Staff will continue to monitor these proposals and will possibly bring back anything that is potentially looking to advance beyond committee deadlines, bring them back to you as a board. The RTA staff continues outreach to lawmakers focused on the asks of our legislative agenda that includes securing full funding for transit operations, developing a funding structure that is less reliant on fares, and reforms that improve the rider experience, and the statewide policies that leverage transit to address the impacts of climate change. In addition to hosting the breakfast that I just mentioned in Springfield, in January, the RTA partnered with State Representative Mary Beth Canty, I think you remember her, to host a webinar with new representatives to discuss transit funding issues in Northeastern Illinois and the challenges that are facing our system. There's a lot of new members in the General Assembly, and it was great for her to host this event for us and sort of pull together that group of legislators so we can help bring them up to speed, not just on our fiscal cliff, but sort of Transit 101, how we're operated, how we're structured, how we're funded, etc. And finally, Governor Pritzker is scheduled to deliver his proposed 2025 state budget next Wednesday in Springfield. And we will be sure to note and share anything that impacts transit in our region from his remarks and the related budget proposal. On the federal side, Congress and the White House continue to work towards consensus on an FY24 government funding levels, including transit funding for our region. President Biden signed a continuing resolution that pushes back the deadline of an agreement on the FY 2024 spending and funds some portions of government that includes transportation and public transit through early March at the current spending levels, so some stability through March at least. And at the end of January, congressional negotiators reached an agreement on top-level spending for the Transportation, House, and Urban Development Bill that is in line with levels from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. So no major transit cuts are expected. So we'll keep watching that and keep you updated, though, as things progress. Also in January, Representative Rajna Krishnamurthy and Mike Quigley, along with 10 other members of the Illinois congressional delegation, wrote to Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg and Nuria Fernandez, the administrator for the FTA, to urge the federal government to identify solutions to the impending fiscal cliff for transit agencies across the country that include us as the Chicago region. The RTA staff is going to continue to engage with our Illinois congressional delegation to work towards finding solutions and things that the federal government might be able to do to help us in that issue. So next slide, please. To wrap up, today's meeting is going to include two presentations. First on the 2024 audit plan. The second is an update on the implementation of the strategic plan that I've also mentioned now several times as we mark its 1-year adoption. And then we will ask for your votes on certifying the financial results for the fourth quarter of 2023, an amendment to the 23 through 28 capital program, an intergovernmental agreement with Cook County on the Chicago Regional Mobility Hub framework, and an approval on a contract, and then travel expense reimbursements as well. So that concludes my comments. Happy to answer any questions and turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Leanne. Any questions, comments? Director Gorman.
Thank you. Just more of a comment. Thanks, Leanne. I appreciate the wrap up, but I know it wasn't easy getting out in front with the fiscal cliff that was coming, but it's good to see that Congressman Quigley, and his congressional delegation are, talking about it right now to hopefully get in front of this along with the state legislature. So we appreciate you keeping us updated on that.
We're pushing on all fronts.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Speaking of audits and other things, item 6A is the presentation of the 2024 audit plan, and Lelaine Alvarez will present the report. Hi, Lelaine. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Lelaine Alvarez, the RTA's Chief Auditor. Today I will be presenting the 2024 audit plan, which highlights audit projects and related work proposed for the year. This plan was developed and has been thoroughly evaluated and discussed with the audit chair, Director Carlson. Next slide, please. The audit division has two primary functions: the oversight audit and internal audit. First, the oversight audit, which is conducted in accordance with the RTA Act that mandates an audit of the service boards at least once every 5 years to ensure management, financial, and performance is effective and efficient. The Act also requires the audit of the ADA paratransit program every 3 years to ensure that the services provided are eligible under the American Disabilities Act of 1990. This audit was completed in 2022, and the next one will commence in fiscal year 2025. Also included here are audits that is conducted in compliance with external or other funding agencies requirements such as IRAT, FTA, and CMAP. These audits required by law or by agreement with the funding source are the routine audits that we conduct regularly to ensure compliance and efficiency. The second function, the internal audit, which is conducted to provide an objective and independent assurance that assists in improving, in particular, the RTA's operations and risk mitigation control, reviewing of our own internal processes and programs to ensure proper compliance with any relevant laws or regulations, and evaluates the effectiveness and efficiency of internal control in place. Next slide, please. Let me start with the oversight audits, as described in materials provided to the board and available on the RTA website in detail. These audits are those required by RTA Act, RTA, and other funding agencies to ensure that funds are spent appropriately, administered according to grant agreements, and follow the program's management guidelines as represented here. These audits are strategically scheduled towards the third and fourth quarter of the year in order to not coincide with the service board's annual financial audit. Next slide, please. Continuing on, these type of audits are regular oversight audits that we normally coordinated with individual service boards and complete each year. We also review the compliance of the transparency portal on a quarterly basis to determine whether data is being reported timely and if there are any issues with the data presented. Additionally, we perform follow-up activities with any audit recommendations or observations that we encountered during our audit with RTA or each service boards as needed. Next slide, please. Now, let's look the internal audit projects. This chart represents different types of audits which are normally completed annually to ensure compliance, internal controls are in place and working properly, and process and procedures are followed effectively. As an example, one of the audits is for the personally identifiable information protection, or in short, PII. In here, we evaluate the access information or control for each type, including the methods used to monitor compliance and whether RTA has performed an inventory of the type and location for all PII. Another one is the Consolidated Technical Assistance Program, or known as CTA Project Closeout. These are projects funded by grants received from FTA, IDAT, and CMAP, where we conduct a formal closeout audit to officially document that the project funded by the grants has been completed timely and within budget. This concludes my presentation, and I am happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine, and thank you, Director Colson, for always your leadership in the audit field. Any questions of Elaine? If not, thank you very much. Appreciate it. 6B is an update on Transit is the Answer our strategic plan. And Malik, you can hop on up and introduce whoever else is going to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I'm Malik Vaishnav, Senior Deputy Executive Director of Planning and Capital Programming. I'll be joined by several colleagues to present updates on a few items, starting with Transit is the Answer, our strategic plan's 1-year anniversary. But also I want to thank the public comments on bus lanes and bus priority. We will follow up on that as well and get back to you. But first, I'll turn it over to Peter Kirsten.
Good morning. Hello, I'm Peter Kirsten, Program Manager working on implementing Transit is the Answer. Thanks for having us here today. Today marks the 1-year anniversary of adoption of the 5-year strategic plan. Over the past year, we've kept the board up to date on implementation progress with monthly updates, quarterly project reports, the latter being timed with meetings of the Transit is the Answer Coalition. So today, I'm just going to highlight several milestones that we've accomplished, as well as efforts we're advancing in the coming months. Next slide. So the plan articulates this broader agenda for advocacy and action, which represents the goals that the RTA and the service boards are aiming to accomplish in realizing the vision of a safe, reliable, accessible public transportation system that connects people to opportunity, advances equity, and combats climate change. Central to this is obviously securing sustainable operations funding for transit, realizing a system that is less reliant on fares, but instead focused on impact. Our process for accomplishing these goals is to build a coalition around the value that transit brings to the Chicago region. And that's what's highlighted here on screen, and a lot of my comments we'll get into. Next slide. So over the course of the year, we held 3 formal Transit is the Answer coalition meetings. Each had 75 to 100 attendees. Many new faces and new organizations were represented. In each meeting, we shared about a project we were working to advance, gathered insight and input from coalition members, and then used that discussion to inform our work. So in May, we shared about our work to fully fund and expand existing programs for vulnerable populations. This includes funding of ADA paratransit, as well as the reduced and ride-free fare programs. Coalition members provided input on how to equitably advance and expand our programs. And we use that input to inform the development of the access pilot that we have now begun with Metro and Cook County. In August, we explored holistic solutions to improve safety and security on transit, highlighting strategies that have been successfully developed in other regions and gleaning what we may be able to apply locally. Again, the discussion, the input received informed how we've planned the upcoming Safety and Security Summit. At our third meeting in December, we shared details on the access pilot with coalition members and then sought input on advancing the 2024 legislative agenda. So this work will continue in 2024. We anticipate having our next coalition meeting in late March or early April. Next slide. As a reminder to board members and anyone viewing online, transitistheanswer.org remains the first place to keep up to speed on implementation progress. So we post quarterly updates on projects. You can find information on how to get involved and join the coalition there. Next slide. So in a moment, Malik will provide a detailed look at projects on the immediate horizon. I'll just briefly mention a couple other key initiatives that you'll likely hear more on in 2024. So first is the Transit is the Answer public campaign, which will ramp up in the coming weeks. You've seen some previews of that in previous meetings. This paid media campaign highlights the value of public transit and the need for sustainable funding. It promotes awareness of the challenges the system faces and RTA's plans to address them in partnership with CTA, Metra, and PACE. We'll have data and reporting on the access pilot over the next months and continuing over the 18-month duration of the pilot. We're currently working on a regional transit economic impact analysis that will quantify the economic and climate impacts of two scenarios. One, a significantly reduced regional system that remains absent a sustainable funding solution. And second, a transformed system that with investment beyond kind of the projected shortfall, showing how much more benefit we can leverage for the region from a sustainably funded regional network. Additionally, we're finalizing resources on two planning studies, the Transit Friendly Communities Policy and the Transit Rider Information and Communication Study. Again, all of these efforts, we're going to continue to leverage our growing coalition for input and guidance, and we'll continue to keep the board up to date on progress and provide opportunities for input as well. Back to you, Malik.
Thanks, Peter. Next slide, please. So in the look ahead, as we continue implementing key promises in the strategic plan, we are also advancing regional coordination efforts this month. And today I'd like to focus on two key initiatives that will be undertaken in February. Next slide, please. The first is the RTA Safety and Security Summit. We will host the Transit Safety and Security Summit on February 27th at the Chicago Cultural Center. This is an invite-only event with an afternoon program that will ultimately focus on efforts in 2024 that can improve public safety and transit rider experience. RTA, CTA, Metra, and PACE are committed to improving public safety across the transit network in partnership with City of Chicago and suburban municipalities. This cross-sector safety and security summit will explore holistic solutions and help advance new initiatives. Areas of focus will include enhancing personal security and addressing perception of crime on transit, incorporating transit-specific strategies into social service initiatives, and creating safer, more welcoming environments at transit stations and stops. The summit will feature panel discussions and breakout groups that dive deeper into key rider issues related to personal safety and identify potential solutions. Portions of the program will be recorded and posted on YouTube, and a full recap will be posted on the RTA blog. Attendees will include RTA and Service Board leadership and staff, Transit is the Answer coalition members, peer transit agency staff, and representatives from many local and state agencies. We look forward to updating you on the summit outcomes at the next board meeting. Next slide, please. The second initiative is RTA's 2024 call for community planning projects. The call will open on February 26th and close on March 22nd, and will once again be held jointly with the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. The RTA Community Planning Program offers transportation and land use planning throughout the region to advance transit is the answer and to aid in the development of walkable and sustainable and equitable communities near transit stations and along transit corridors. The type of work that has been completed in this program in the past includes ETOD development plans, transit corridor studies, curb management plans, mobility hubs, and a variety of plan implementation assistance. New this year is a new category called transit station activations. Under this category, funding will be made available to cover the costs related to rail station and bus stop activation projects aimed at bringing a temporary increased presence of people at transit stations and stops as one solution to real or perceived public safety concerns. It is envisioned these projects and activities will be simple, short-term, occurring over a few hours over certain days that will bring residents, transit riders, and visitors to the area to experience the activation project. Potential projects include bringing in performers or street vendors, attendees that attendees will see. Sorry, I messed up the page. Yes. And we expect to award these projects in summer of 2024. So we'll be coming back to you with the updates after the applications have come in. Next slide, please. So that concludes our presentation on updates, and we're happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Malik and Peter. Any questions or comments? Director Colson.
I think meetings and discussions and advocacy are very nice, very important. But it's our strategic plan, and it's just a piece of paper unless we choose to give it life. And so I'm wondering what efforts can be made to compel or at least to encourage the service boards to act consistently with our strategic plan. Everything from bus lanes on Chicago Avenue, which we heard about today, to metro ticketing. Can we at least require the service boards maybe to certify or to illustrate that their budgets are compatible with our strategic plan? I mean, I guess my question is, what can we do to bring the service boards along?
This is a great question. I'll take the first stab, and Leanne, I'm sure, has more to add. We have been coordinating very closely. I came from 11 years at CTA, and we meet several times a month with the service boards to advance specific items in the strategic plan. So the coordination is going really well in terms of implementation of items. To your point, we do not want to write and publish plans that sit on a shelf. So one of them is the Safety Summit is a huge endeavor to try to get not just the service boards, but the mayor's office, CPD, and suburbs to coordinate and show up and actively participate in discussing solutions with our coalition members. So that'll be a half-day activity coming up very shortly. So we'd love to come back and report to you on specific tangible items that we are getting out of the plan for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I just echo what Malik said. I mean, several of the items that they just summarized now, we were providing sort of support and leadership within, but actually it's the service boards that are actually executing upon them. And like the Access program is a fare program that Metra is, providing those rides at reduced fare. We and Cook County and Metra are all collectively funding it. So these are very much real items that are real activities that are happening to advance a lot of the tenets within the strategic plan. There's a lot more, and we continue to work on those. I mean, everything from even the community planning things, it's laying that foundation. So those plans are in place, so then they can be built on and executed. There's a lot within the capital program as well. You probably recall when we approved the budget at the end of the year, there's 15 new measures as to which the service boards have to comply and basically justify their capital projects against those that are built directly out of guidance from the strategic plan. So it's an ongoing effort where we continue certify, I guess is maybe that was the word you used, but I think that that's something we continue to want to do. And as the chairman will note too, I mean, we are very actively or collectively working together on the funding issue. And some of this is just going to take time. But I appreciate your comments. And I think it is something that is very much focused I meet monthly with the EDs and the chiefs of staff, and that's just a small group where we sort of talk through things. And then we have a separate meeting, everything and anything. And then we have a separate meeting where it's a broader group with EDs, chiefs of staff, finance and comms people, where we're talking kind of more strategy around some of our bigger initiatives and agendas. Fair products continues to be an item that we continue to work on collectively. That is very much something that we can sort of seed the idea, provide sort of support, guidance, but the service boards ultimately end up executing. So more to come.
Okay, and just, that's fine. I just think we have an opportunity here to demonstrate the, whatever power and authority the RTA has over the service boards. And that's something that's been, I think, neglected over the years I've been on the board. But this is an opportunity to let them know that where the power lies under the statutes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I wholeheartedly agree. And, I don't know when we send questionnaires, and maybe it's through the audit processes, an open-ended question that probably ought to be on some of our written communications to the three service boards is Director Colson's, what are you doing, to implement and help us implement our strategic plan? And again, just, Malik and the staff. Transit is the answer. I've been around government a long time. It's one of the finest produced documents and strategic plans I've ever seen. I mean, it is comprehensive. Thousands of hours went into its production, and we need to make sure that we implement it, and it doesn't just collect dust. So thank you very much. All right. Item 7A are the resolutions certifying the fourth quarter 2023 financial results. And Sarah, thank you for joining Malik
Chairman,
up there.
members of the board. I'm Malik Vaishnav, Senior Deputy Executive Director of Planning and Capital Programming. After a brief overview from me on 2023 highlights, I'm joined by Sarah Rubino, who will walk you through the quarterly financial results certification. Next slide, please. So the first 2023 update is the federal discretionary grants. 2023 was a year of progress for the regional transit system. We ended the year with winning more than $400 million in discretionary federal grants, a significant increase from previous years. Since the federal infrastructure bill IJA was adopted in 2022, there has been significant increase in competitive award funding available across the country. Our service boards have been active in applying for and receiving awards, especially utilizing local and state capital funding as a required match for federal grant opportunities. Before IJA, as you can see on the table, in 2021, the region was awarded $143 million, doubling the following year to $336 and ending 2023 at $414 million. Some of the highlights include $185 million for all station accessibility program ASAP awards for CTA and Metra, which represent 27% of all available funding nationwide that year that came to our region. $55 million in raise grants to CTA and PACE, which are highly competitive and available for roads, trails, biking, and transit projects. $117 million mega grant to Metra in 2022, which was just one of 2 transit projects that year and represented 12% of the total award in that category. $200 million of rail replacement vehicle grant for CTA, again, 28% of funds awarded in those years. While our capital funding needs require much more funding, we are happy to report continued growth in winning discretionary capital grants and bringing federal dollars to the RTA region. Next slide, please. The second item from 2023 is ridership. We added 45 million additional rides in 2023 from the prior year and crossed the 300 million mark for the first time as a region since the start of the pandemic. There were more than 170 days with ridership over 1 million in the region, which tripled from the previous year. The chart on the left shows the absolute number of rides, increase in rides between 22 and 23 for each mode of service, and the chart on the right shows the percentage increase from 2022. Of the 45 million new rides, CTA bus added 22 million, almost half of the increase, which was 15% compared to the prior year. CTA rail grew by 14 million, a 13% increase. Metra added 8 million, which was an increase of 34% compared to previous year, the highest percentage increase in the region. And Pace fixed routes added about 1 million rides, an increase of 10%. The 2024 regional budget expects continued ridership growth this year. Next slide, please. Finally, it is always important to benchmark ourselves with our peers across the country. These charts show recovery of ridership and service hours for each of our service boards compared to 5 peer agencies for each category, such as transit systems of New York, DC, Boston, and others for each mode. Service levels are one of many drivers of ridership and revenue growth, and as more people ride transit, when service is frequent and available throughout the day. The chart on the left shows ridership recovery in comparison to 2019. CTA bus, rail, Metra, and Pace each have surpassed 50% ridership recovery, yet each remain below the ridership gains that we have seen among their peer agencies. While all peers are short of 2019 levels, our region remains 10 to 15 points behind in ridership recovery compared to our peers. For example, the orange bar for Pace shows 57% recovery compared to 2019. The gray bar shows where the peers are at 80%, close to 80%. The dashed line represents the 2019 levels. The chart on the right shows each mode's vehicle revenue hours, also 2013 compared to 2019, reported to the National Transit Database. These are preliminary self-reported numbers from agencies, but it is the best source for us to benchmark ourselves with our peers. Here we can see that the RTA service providers have reinstituted most of service hours that they operated in 2019 and hover between 85% to 97% of 2019 levels as currently reported. Pace and Metra have met or exceeded their peer averages for the amount of service hours, which is why you do not see the gray bar extended next to the orange bar. CTA bus is almost operating at peer levels, while CTA rail is lagging peer agencies that have added significant actual service in the last year or so. To continue to grow ridership in our region, we need to see further progress of actual service delivered. All 3 operators have presented 2024 budgets to you in recent months and announced plans to ramp up hiring, training, and workforce retention throughout the year to deliver the service that they have budgeted. In January, CT announced plans to double their rail operator training capacity so they can onboard more new operators and add service. We'll continue to track these hiring, service, and ridership metrics throughout the year. Finally, lower actual service delivered due to workforce issues has also been a primary driver of positive budget variances that you have been seeing in quarterly certifications. Now I'll turn it over to Sarah Rubino to provide the 2023 fourth quarter financial update.
Thanks, Malik. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. This is Sarah Rubino, Principal Analyst. Today, I'll be asking the board to certify the service board's financial results through the fourth quarter of 2023 against their adopted operating budgets. These recommendations are based on unaudited financial results as reported by the service boards to the RTA. We'll inform the board if the audited financial results of the service boards, once received, differ materially from these unaudited results. First, let's look at our primary metric for evaluating substantial accordance with budget, operating deficit performance. The operating deficit results through December continued to be very favorable to budget for each service board and the region as a whole. Each service board's operating expenses were significantly lower than budgeted. Moreover, CTA Pace Suburban Service and ADA Paratransit system-generated revenues were also each favorable to budget. As requested to complement the percent variance bars, we now have added the operating deficit results for each service board in millions of dollars at the bottom of the slide. As a reminder, the operating deficit is operating revenue minus expenses, a negative number representing a hole to be filled with funding.
The 9.8% favorable variance for the region equates to $264 million of favorable variance from the adopted 2023 budget. With all operating deficit variances favorable to budget, staff recommends a finding of insubstantial accordance with budget for the fourth quarter CTA, Metra, PACE, ADA, and regional results. Next slide, please. Since the last update we provided in December, the service boards have requisitioned an additional $14 million in relief funding. And as a region, we've now drawn down about 56% of the $3.5 billion total. Metra and CTA slowed their requisitions as we approached year end in order to not overdraw as they wait on final 2023 sales tax results. The adopted 2024 budgets indicate that the federal relief funds will begin to exhaust in late 2025 with the remaining balance utilized by mid-2026. We'll continue to keep the board updated as that timing may shift due to three large variables: expense results, sales tax performance, and ridership recovery. Next slide, please. And that concludes our presentation. Back to you, Mr. Chairman, for any questions the board may have, and with a reminder that the proposed fourth quarter resolutions require a vote. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Questions or comments? Yes, Director Gavin.
Thank you for the presentation. On the ridership comparison with our peers, which I assume are other large cities, are there any other reasons why we might be lagging other than not adding as much service?
That's a great question. It is definitely a complicated issue in terms of what the labor market is, of how many people are able to work hybrid and from home. Chicago in the 2023 has actually been seeing a lot of return to office that's comparable to other cities. And you kind of see that with Metra's significant growth, also with construction on the highways and other sort of metrics that play into it. From our rider surveys, we have also heard about public safety concerns, especially in off-peak, where people may not feel safe to ride. Outside of that, I think it's also the changing dynamics of the service. So all service boards are working on plans to sort of adjust. We might provide, say, 80% or 70% of service, but it might look different because people's travel patterns have changed. And that's something some other cities are starting to do, and our region will be following as the three service boards sort of look at the regional rail model for Metra, for example, and other changes that we need to make to attract more riders.
Thanks. Any other questions? Yes, Director Groban. Morning.
Morning. So the favorable results that we see across the board, I think largely driven by this inability to find personnel, but 18% for PACE, that's a huge difference. Are there other things driving that, and are we factoring that into things like our 2024 view or our projection around the fiscal cliff?
I'll let Sarah talk about PACE specifically if she has any insights, but Director, we are factoring sort of these positive variances into the fiscal cliff conversations because, as you saw, the 2024 budgets are larger than 2023, but we have significant positive variances, which is why we believe that the fiscal cliff still remains around 20% of the budget, because we need to see the spend go up and get closer to the budget before we start to make significant changes to that number.
Yeah, thanks, Director. For PACE, we see their significant favorable variance on the operating deficit as a combination of their operating expenses being favorable, so headcount mostly, but also their system generated revenue finished the year almost 48% favorable. So that's a combination of their fare revenue and their ancillary revenue, which is mostly interest income in that other revenue bucket. So we saw PACE with this large operating deficit because both their expenses and revenues were favorable. And as Malik said, we do have plans for 2024 to reforecast the magnitude and the timing of that fiscal cliff. We're not there yet, but it's on our plans, and we do know that this favorable variance will impact that along with the other variables that we mentioned, like sales tax performance and ridership recovery as well. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Need a motion and a second to approve these financial results. Director Carey moves, seconded by Director Groven, that we adopt the item 7A Madam Secretary, you want to take a roll call?
Sure, and also I'd like to know that Director Holt has joined as well. Director Indalcio?
Aye.
Dr. Carey?
Aye.
Dr. Colson?
Aye.
Dr. Fuentes?
Aye.
Dr. Gathering?
Aye.
Dr. Gorman?
Aye.
Dr. Groven?
Aye.
Dr. Holt?
Aye.
Dr. Patel? Dr. Lewis? Dr. Melvin?
Yes.
Dr. Pang?
Yes.
Dr. Ross?
Yes.
Dr. Sauger? I know he's.
Yes.
And Chairman Dillard.
Yes.
That would be 13 ayes.
Thank you. 7A, the resolution certifying the fourth quarter of 2023's financial results is adopted. Thank you. 7B is an ordinance amending the 2024 to 2028 capital program. And Tara O'Malley, good morning.
Morning. I'm Tara O'Malley, Principal Analyst in the Capital Program Department. I'm here to request your approval of an ordinance to amend the 2024 to 2028 capital program. Next slide, please. The Chicago Department of Transportation, or CDOT, received $5 million in earmarked State of Illinois bond funds on behalf of CTA for the new Damon Green Line Station project. As we have seen in the past, CDOT is responsible for the construction and/or renovation of some CTA stations, such as the case with the construction of the new Damon Green Line Station. Typically, non-service board projects aren't included in the RTA capital program. However, these funds pass from the state to RTA to CDOT per legislation. Therefore, for RTA to grant the funds to CDOT, we must include them in our capital program. The new station located at Lake Street and Damon Avenue will create connectivity to the United Center, Malcolm X College, as well as for a connection for neighborhood residents and businesses. The station is expected to open later this year in 2024. Next slide, please. And it's pretty super simple. That's the only change that we've got. So to summarize, the 2024 to 2028 program is increasing by $5 million to a total of $4.99 billion. We are requesting the adoption of the following ordinance, the approval of the amendment to the 2024 to 2028 capital program. I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, we are seeking your approval.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on this one? Vital for Malcolm X College, the United Center, which has always been underserved, or that area, and just the growth in that area. And if you look at the rendering of what this may look like, it's pretty cool. Let's put it that way. How about a motion and a second? Director Ross moves that we adopt the change to the capital program, seconded by Director Gorman. Joey, want to take a quick roll call on this one?
Sure. Dr. Indalcio?
Aye.
Dr. Carey?
Aye.
Dr. Colson? Dr. Fuentes?
Aye.
Dr. Gathering?
Aye.
Dr. Gorman?
Aye.
Dr. Groven?
Aye.
Dr. Holt?
Aye.
Dr. Patel? Dr. Lewis? Dr. Melvin?
Yes.
Dr. Pang?
Yes.
Dr. Ross?
Yes.
Dr. Sauger?
Yes.
And Chairman Dillard.
Aye.
13 ayes.
That is adopted. Moving on, items 7C to 7E are the approval of contract and expenditure items as they appear on the board's agenda and in your packets. These items include 7C, which is an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with Cook County for the Chicago Regional Mobility Hubs Framework. 7D, an ordinance approving a subscription to Bloomberg Anywhere. 7E are the travel expense requirements. And Malik is here if you have questions on 7C. Bill Lackman is available on 7D if anybody wants to know about our Bloomberg subscription, which is something we do all the time. Any questions on any of these? Otherwise, how about a motion on 7C through 7E? Director Indalcio moves that we approve these, seconded by Director Gorman. And Joey, want to take a roll call on that, please?
Dr. Indalcio?
Aye.
Dr. Carey?
Aye.
Dr. Colson?
Aye.
Dr. Fuentes?
Aye.
Dr. Gathering?
Aye.
Dr. Gorman?
Aye.
Dr. Groven?
Aye.
Dr. Holt?
Aye.
Dr. Patel? Dr. Lewis? Dr. Melvin?
Yes.
Dr. Pang? Yes. Dr. Ross,
Yes.
Dr. Sagar,
Yes.
and Chairman Dillard.
Aye.
13 ayes.
Thank you. And those items are approved. Thank you, everyone. Item 8, new business. Any new business to come
I-
before the board today? Yes, Director Fuentes.
I'd just like to say that I attended the ADA Coordination Committee meeting. And again, I'd like to update the board that all service boards are exceeding their goals for accessibility. I think it's important that we recognize their efforts, and putting it ahead of programs is important, and them fighting for actual more financing to accomplish these is even, CTA going redundancy in elevators when possible at stations, Metra making more ramps, visibility, signage. I mean, they're really taking it seriously, and I just want to commend them again on exceeding their goals. That's all I have. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much. And thank you always for your advocacy on for people with disabilities. It's critical to us. And as always, I thank U.S. Senator Tammy Duckworth, who is also a leader nationally in pushing transit agencies to do this. Thank you. Director Gorman.
Thank you. Just in wrapping up, I know we're wrapping up, and Leanne or Executive Director's report mentioned that she meets monthly with the EDs of the service boards and chiefs of staffs and finance and whatnot. And I asked in the pre-board meeting, with Jill about the hiccups with what's going on with the Metra while they're transitioning into this new program that we all had concerns with. I took the train today. I said, okay, I'll be patient, see how the app goes this morning on my train ride down, and only for the conductor to go through and say, the app's down, the app's down. And this was a packed Metra car, or not just car, the whole, express trains. So, I just think that it's really being missed out on some opportunities here. And I just hope that they get it together soon. I know it's not Metro, whatever the outside vendor is. I was explained to, there is some type of reimbursement plan for the hiccups that are occurring. So I hope that is the case. But if we can be updated at the next board meeting, if not, have somebody here, and hopefully it is, up and running. So thank you.
Appreciate those comments, Director Gorman. Yes, and just as a bit of additional information, I mean, obviously it is Ventra is a vendor-run contract for Metra. It has been having some challenges since the transition. It had been working great for 2 weeks, and today it was down again. But I will say that Metra is on this. They are working through this from a contractual standpoint, and they have requested that the vendor come and speak to them at their board meeting next week, Wednesday. So beyond that, I'm in regular communication with Jim, wearing my professional hat as well as my personal hat, like, hey, what's going on? But we will keep you apprised and updated as this progresses.
It's great because there was a gentleman, working the machine. It looked like a great, Liz-proof, I won't say idiot-proof machine where, I would have been able to, handle it. But I said, in talking with the gentleman that was working the machine, I said that, he goes, want to try it? And I said, you know what, I'd rather try the app to see how it is working, on the train today, which, to no avail. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other new business? If not, our next meeting will be March 21st. Hard to believe it will be spring at 9 a.m. And if there's no further business to come before the public session of the Board of Directors, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Director Fuentes moves that we adjourn our meeting, seconded by Director Pang. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.